Whatever. Time to start with this. Episode 5. Good morning, please enjoy this new game by a new game master at your leisure. However, the game has already reached a climax, the corporate has been cornered and there's nothing left to do but await the final checkmate. But for that very reason, there must be something for you to spot looking down on it from afar. The difficulty is fairly easy. What could possibly deceive you after all this time? Okay, what is going to happen now? You idiot! Isn't it obvious? It'll be fun to kill her and see your face twist in pain. Why else? Look, look, don't turn your eyes away. Look at it. Look, look, look. It's magic, it's furniture. No matter how much you try to deny me magic. Look, 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 look. Sorry, Battler. It was pretty fun. Sure, I just did what teacher told me, but look how great it turned out. Apparently, if you start out all hostile and needlessly brutal, then turn into competent and soft at just the right moment, you can spark a huge bump on your affection meter, right? That lonely tone was the desolate sound of the wind blowing by. The glittering rose petals on these bushes were all golden. The cloud of gold butterflies that had once danced through this gold rose garden, like fluttering rose petals, was no longer anywhere to be seen. The master of the golden land is the golden witch Beatrice. She might be called inhumane and cruel, arrogant and outrageous, or perhaps naive and simple. That laugh of hers, which lost its grace more and more the longer it continued, could no longer be heard. The golden witch Beatrice sat like a doll, resting in a deck chair adorned as beautifully as the golden rose garden itself. She wasn't relaxing there. Her eyes were empty. She didn't respond to any questions. Even so, she was not permitted to sleep. You know what I did not read? The text for executing Battler. I mean, he died in the 4th game as well, right? Even so, she was not permitted to sleep. Beatrice sat like a doll. Her hair was down, and Virgilia was carefully tending to it with a comb. The usual Beato would surely have spent this time complaining about this and that regarding her hairstyle. However, she made no response, showed no reaction, so it really only looked like Virgilia was combing the golden hair of a large doll. There was a table alongside them. On it sat a chessboard, along with a jumble of black and white pieces locked in a closely fought battle. However, the setup looked somewhat different from normal chess. Maybe the game was similar, though not identical. And on the other side, sitting back in his chair as he contemplated his next move, was a young man. No, perhaps it wasn't his next move he contemplated. Every once in a while he would change the positions of the pieces, reconsidering the situation after every change. Maybe he was reconstructing previous games, trying to discover the thought process behind the moves that had been made. In the past, Kinzo, the Uchidomiya family head, once said that learning chessboard arrangements was like taking a journey through the thoughts of the old masters. Uchidomiya Battler was on a journey. A search for the thought process that had led the Golden Witch to create this arrangement and make these moves. Battler took a black piece that should have been moved forward and returned it to its original place, sighing deeply. Battler's pieces were white. However, on this chessboard, the black encampment was on Battler's side. He was reconstructing that arrangement, trying to play Beato's role. The more I do this, the less I understand your moves. Even Battler didn't expect that Beato would respond to that statement, or rather he was pretending to talk to himself, thinking there might still be some chance of her responding. Whoa, what the hell? Beato's eyes reflected nothing, and her mouth told nothing. After begging him to kill her, the Golden Witch had become a corpse that had given up on life. She wasn't sleeping. She couldn't step down from this game and was therefore forbidden sleep. So those words must have reached her ears, however they probably hadn't reached her heart. The Golden Witch would not sneer at Battler's moves, nor would she praise them or belittle them. By now Beatrice was nothing more than a living doll. Even so, she would glance at him every once in a while. It would be an empty glance, but a glance nonetheless. Sometimes she would seem to make some sort of gesture, or even move her lips. However, her movements never managed to communicate anything to Battler. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. Beato, Bella-kun is talking to you. Say something. Giggle or guffaw or something. Even use that shrill laugh of yours if you want. Can you believe it? That shrill laugh of Beato's will never be heard again. However, even if she couldn't answer, his voice surely reached her. That was what Bella believed as he said these words. So he said it again. How did you decide on this move in this situation? I don't get it at all. I don't understand your moves. So you don't understand what this child is thinking? Virgilia answered in her disciple's stead. Up to this point, she had done her best to avoid speaking for Beato. After all, there was a chance that Beato would respond in some way, and Virgilia didn't want to be the one to steal that chance, so Bella was going to have to bear with this silence, until Beato herself answered. Virgilia could no longer bear to watch Bella like this. Besides, Bella also wanted to hear what Virgilia had to say. He believed that conversation would reach Beato's heart. Yep, I don't have a clue. The more I try standing in Beato's shoes and moving the pieces like this, the less I understand. A serial murder following an epitaph. With that as a victory condition, I tried reconstructing the games from the witch's side, but I never ended up making the moves Beato did. In those games I could find several incomprehensible moves that clearly worked against that victory condition. I don't get it at all. This journey through her thoughts is just too rugged. Even so, you won't give up, will you? I won't. I promised. Kill me. Let me die. I promised to let her die peacefully, and I'm the only one who can do it. Beato's right ankle was bound with a heavy cold steel shackle. It wasn't tied to anything, so it didn't restrict her movement. However, it symbolized restriction. It was a visualization of the bonds. That prevented her from leaving the game until she either won or lost, and the shackle was probably hurting her. The mercilessly cold shackle tormented her over and over inside her waking dream. So there was never any sign of relief in her empty expression. Her eyelids would sometimes tremble like she was having a nightmare, and every once in a while she would let out a pained gasp. Unless I win, Beato will never be released from the curse that prevents her from sleeping peacefully. Are you sure you want to be doing this? It seems the 5th game has already started. Not interested. Why should I take part in any game unless Beato is my opponent? If that's the only alternative, then it's a much better use of my time to reconstruct previous games while taking a journey in search of Beato's thought process. I'll be the next game master. Any objections? You've got none, right? I've got nothing but objections. Beato conceded the fight and is unconscious. Isn't this a loss by default and game over for her? I'll admit a lot's happened to Beato and she's basically been KO'd for now. But that doesn't mean she's lost the will to fight. That's why I'm acting as her assistant. Get it? Beato was lying down on a deck chair, almost as though she was sleeping. However, she wasn't sleeping. And she wasn't awake either. She was nothing more than a living doll that had given up on victory, who had asked Battler to perform her last rites, and who had surrendered everything. Of course, if everyone just sat around, the next game, the 5th game, would never be made ready. So Lambda Delta had succeeded Beato as the next game master and announced that she'd prepared the next game. Quit messing around. This is a game between me and Beato. I don't know who you two are, but I'm not gonna let you carry on without us. No one asked for your opinion. Well, you do, Burn. Accept my challenge or not? Sure. Go ahead and inherit her role. The hell, quit messing around. I don't know who you people are, but I'm not going to let you ignore Beato and me and just carry on by yourselves. Hey, take it easy. Okay, sure, new player means you'll face new kinds of moves. I'm sure you'll see a lot of stuff that confuses you, but even that might lead to some big hints, get it? Who cares? Quit saying whatever you want and deciding everything on your own. Beato's game is repeated 4 times and you still don't understand anything, right? In that case, I expect that swapping out opponents might lead to some huge hints. That's none of your business. This is our game. Beato prepared it and she designated me to be her opponent. I don't know what hole you two crept out of, but I don't want you screwing things up. In that case, wake Beato up and make her get the next game ready. Can you? But Beato won't be getting up for a while. Anyway, we don't even need to have another game. The 4 games she's already laid out are more than enough. And even if we do have some 5th game, there's no reason it shouldn't just be a puzzle Beato lays out and I take on. There's absolutely no reason for you two to butt in. Battler couldn't hide his irritation at the 2 witches called Lambda Delta and Bernkastel, who had shown up well after the game started and who were now trying to take charge on their own. It looked like these witches were of an even higher rank than Beato, so high in fact that even Beato's teacher Virgilia couldn't even come close. Battler had the feeling he had seen these 2 several times before. However, this was the first time he had known their names and spoken to them directly. You can't get the next game ready without waking Beato. That's why I'll prepare the next game. We aren't so patient that we're willing to wait forever for Beato regaining consciousness. Right, Bern? I don't like boredom. It really ticks me off. We really don't give a damn whether you're bored or not. Come on now. Leave everything to this perfect Lambda Delta somehow, okay? I'll take over as the game master. Don't worry. I won't play with too much absolute perfection. Just like Beato, I'll set up plenty of incomprehensible fakes, clues, and bonus hints. I'll make this game a huge hint that will help you understand Beato's world even better, okay? Letting my voiceless emotions explode, I slammed the table hard. The two witches didn't flinch at all. One grinned, the other looked indifferent, as though nothing had happened. The two of them just stared at me silently, as though they were reproaching me. What's this? Not satisfied? Are you saying you'll step down from my 5th game? Isn't that a loss by default? Bettler won't step down. Of course, he'll participate in the 5th game. Don't just decide that yourself. I'm not gonna play along with you two. I don't give a shit. Then it really is a loss by default, right? The witch side wins this game. Is it really okay to end this with the humans surrendering? If you step down, the game will end with your loss by default, get it? If you want to guarantee that your lonely sister always meets with miserable circumstances in an endless number of worlds, that option is indeed open to you. When Bernkastel mentioned Angie, Bettler's expression changed instantly. You bastard. Don't you dare talk about Angie so lightly. Because you have an ally in me, Bernkastel, the Witch of Miracles. There exists the possibility of a miracle in which Angie's family comes home to her. Well, if you do throw the chance away and guarantee that Angie's endless futures all end in sorrow, that might be pretty interesting too. I vaguely understood what she was saying. Until I win in Beato's game, I'll remain trapped in this bizarre world, and if I abandon that victory, then most certainly my parents and I will never return to Angie. For Angie's sake, even though I know that the witches are toying with me, I must keep on fighting. Oh, damn it. What's wrong? You look unsatisfied. Have you already forgotten how angry you were when your sister was turned to mincemeat? You know, that spectacle where he was torn to bits, ripped to pieces by countless red-hot pliers. You'd better watch more closely next time, okay? Bernkastel pointed the palm of her right hand upwards. As she did, a pale light gathered there, and some kind of blue glowing crystal appeared there. A scene was reflected on its sharp surface, but it wasn't the scene that surrounded them now. If you looked deep into that crystal, that fragment, then you would probably learn what was reflected on there. I imagined that, yes. If you stared at it, then you would surely see the end Angie finally reached after waiting 12 years and giving up everything for the sake of her beloved brother. The scene of her death rose as her entire body was torn to bits while she still lived. Damn you! Without thinking, he grabbed at her collar, but as soon as he touched that which made up her form, it disappeared like foam on the waves. Then, as naturally as though she'd been there from the beginning, Bernkastel was leaning against a distant wall. If you step down from the game, this will become not just a fragment, but a definite reality. I won't be the one to create that future. You will do it yourself. So decide, okay? Figure out what you want to do with your beloved little sister's future. Bettler's fists shook with anger, but even if he swung them down, he wouldn't be able to hit Bernkastel. This witch was like a phantom or a cat who wouldn't even let someone pet her if she didn't wish for it. And she was telling the truth. Even for Angie's sake, I can't step down from this fight, even if these unpleasant witches hijack the game board. That's just like you, Bern. You're even heartless when you threaten people. That's how it is, Bettler. You aren't allowed to step down from the game board. You and Beato are nothing more than pieces on the board that exist to distract us from our boredom. Even your incomprehensible anger and irritation make for a wonderful treat to satisfy us. Well, what you're doing now only makes for a cheap snack, though. Like those curry-flavored potato wafers that sell for 30 yen a pair. Oh god, I don't want to see them smile like that. You damn witches. Fight for Angie's sake, okay? And for Beato's too, right? In a way that was admonishing, or perhaps babying, like the headache you get after eating something too sweet, Bernkastel tormented Bettler and smiled. By now, the host of this tea party, Beato, was absent. The guest witches were already making themselves at home. What'll you do with you, my Bettler? Will you surrender to fate? Just step down. You've had enough of being toyed with as a witch's piece, right? It sure is tough being one of Bern's pieces. I'm sure she'll use you and throw you away just like she did with Angie. I'm not giving you the option of stepping down. Keep fighting for the sake of your sister's future. I'm your ally. Until you win, I'll support you so you can reach that future. For all eternity until I get bored. I can't let her provocation and cajolery rile me up. These witches know I get mad easily, and they're trying to take advantage of that. Battler withstood it all and finally relaxed his clenched fists. If you want to start this 5th game of yours, go ahead and do it. Do whatever you want. Yes, I will do whatever I want. Hey, where are you going? Even though Battler acknowledged this 5th game, he turned his back on them, much to Lambda Delta's surprise. If you're gonna be Beato's substitute, then I'm sure that Bancastle Witch over there can stand in for me if she wants. Not a bad idea. Better than a loss by default. What the heck? Are you gonna just ignore this episode 5 that I put so much effort into making? Rude, rude! Battler says he's going to take a break for a while. Until he comes back, I'll be his substitute. How's that sound, Battler? You do that. Look at all the fucks Battler has to give for this 5th game. What's wrong, Lambda? So you refuse to oh, what's wrong, Lambda? So you refuse to play if it's against me instead of that fool Battler? Of course not. I'm glad I get to play with you, Ben. Come on, let's play, let's play. Let's play together in Lambda Delta Summer Super Hyper and Cute Episode 5. This technically is a world Beato created. You aren't going to ruin the atmosphere of the story, are you? Don't worry about that. I'm really good at reading between the lines with that sort of stuff. I made sure to use a Beato-ish atmosphere to make a tale that's even more interesting. Battler, make sure you come back as soon as your break's over, okay? It'd be a shame to miss this. I've set up plenty of bonus hints that'll get you closer to Beato's secrets. Or at least that's what it'll look like when it's actually filled with misdirection that makes stuff more and more confusing. Wait, hey, Battler, why aren't you listening when a witch is talking? Without answering, Battler disappeared into the darkness. After shrugging and cackling, the witches immediately started playing with the game board they had stolen from Beato. Can those witches really understand Beato's game? Since they're using the same game board, they cannot do anything that this child cannot do. However, they can do things that this child wouldn't do. What do you mean, things she wouldn't do? The materials of chess exist so that you can play chess. You cannot use them to play cards. However, when it comes to throwing chess pieces at your opponent and scribbling on the board, such things are not impossible to do. However, that would be a blasphemy against the game of chess, so people choose not to do that. That definitely wouldn't be chess anymore. Beato's eyes seem to cloud slightly with sadness. Damn them. This game is between me and Beato. I won't let anyone else defile it. At that time, gold butterflies gathered and Renova appeared, holding a tea set with black tea. Would you like some more tea? If you wouldn't mind. Certainly. So, how goes this journey of yours in search of Milady's thoughts? I don't have a clue, but I'm enjoying it. However, are you sure about this? Is it truly alright for you to relax here? You mean that game those witches just started all by themselves? Indeed. Just now when I went to serve them some tea, the murders of the first twilight had already taken place, and it seemed as though the next murder would occur shortly. When Beato and I were playing, the game would be paused whenever someone left their seats. However, those witches wouldn't pause the game just because I wasn't around. Renov, did you see their game? Just a part of it. How was it? Renov lifted the pot high with an elegant gesture as he poured the black tea. After finishing that, he finally spoke. He gave us his impressions of it. It did not have love. What do you mean, love? My apologies. That is how a woman might put it. As a man, one might call it dishonorable. I understood what those words meant. When I met Virgilia's eyes, she shook her head slightly and stared at the floor. I believe it resembles Milady's games greatly on the surface. However, its foundation is quite different. Does it go against the rules of Beato's game? No, it does not. Lambda Delta Summer actually does understand the rules of Milady's game very well. However, Battler stood up. There was no need to make Renov say any more. Battler-kun. Sorry, Renov. I know you went to all the trouble of pouring this for me, but tea isn't what I need. So you will go after all? Yeah. We don't need any outsiders in our game. These guys weren't even here in the beginning, because I've been loafing about. Crazier and crazier witches have been introduced, and now they've hijacked this game between me and Beatrice. I've got to take it back. Right now I'm supposed to be the one taking care of Beato's game board. That means I can't just sit around here. Thank you. I wanted to let this child hear those words. I'm sure she hears them. Milady is simply unable to answer. Beato lay there silently, like a living doll with dull eyes. The game board she had created herself had been hijacked by incomprehensible people, and was being turned into a mess. If I was designated to be her opponent, then Beato must have created this game for me. I've got to take it back. Wait here, I'll go and take it back. Of course Beato didn't respond in any way. That's right. If she can't respond, then I have to protect it in her place. I'll be right back. Virgilia Renove. I'm counting on you two to look out for this golden sleeping beauty. Yes, leave it to us. See you later, Petlica. And please, in the game without this child, try to find some part of her. If you can, then even if this child is absent, it will mean you have fought with her. You're right. It's all useless. What am I doing? Let's go, and let's take it back. Sorry to keep you waiting, witches. My break is over. We should just replace witches with bitches every time. See how that sounds. When he faced the jet black heavens and yelled this, the whole world shattered as though it were made out of thin glass. Then, as though it had been that way since the beginning, it transformed into that smoking room where Battle had fought Beato so many times, and which the two bitches had now hijacked. What do you think you're doing? You're only coming back now? It's way too late. Not only has the game reached the second day, it's already at the finale, get it? You never showed up, so I just advanced things on my own. Yeah, like you even waited for me in the first place. But I was way more skillful and thrilling than you were, right? Shut up. I'm the player. You substitute witches can just take a step back now. Well, I don't really mind if you join in starting now, but there's probably no need for you anymore. Seriously, after all, we're already at the climax. After this, Ben will probably corner me and win. What the hell? Nothing wrong with that, is there? Why don't we let him watch the final endgame? Of course! Come on over, Ushido Beller. It's almost completely over, but here's the cute and elegant game I made. Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch. What? What the hell? It's just giving me this now. Good lord. How many people are dead? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 6 people are dead? Didn't she say they almost reached the climax? So why are only 6 people dead? So Jessica, her corpse was found in the cousin's room on the second floor of the guest house. The direct cause of death is unknown, but her neck was sliced open by a sharp blade. The wound was deep enough that anyone could easily confirm her death with absolute certainty. Okay, Jessica is dead. George is dead. Found in the cousin's room on the second floor of the guest house. The same place. All also the same text. Hideyoshi was found in a guest room on the first floor of the mansion. So they were found in the guest house. Anyone else? Oh, she was found in the guest house as well. Same text as Jessica. She was found in the guest house as well. Same text as the rest. Servant waiting room. Okay, so those 4 were all found in the guest room house. Second floor. Neck was sliced open by a sharp blade. Then there's Hideyoshi. His corpse was found in the guest room on the first floor of the mansion. So this is not in the guest house, but in the mansion. A demon stake had pierced through his back. The tip of it reached as far as his lungs. Because he was lying face down on the bed, it's unthinkable that this was a suicide. And Genji. His corpse was found in the servant waiting room on the first floor of the mansion. The direct cause of death is unknown, but his neck was sliced open by a sharp blade. The wound was deep enough that anyone could easily confirm his death with absolute certainty. So again, the same cause of death, but different place. Also in the mansion. First floor of the mansion in both cases. What do I... Hey, hold on. Hold on, I wasn't done. The second day, October 5th, 1986. Hey, I wanted to go to the menu again. Please, menu. Menu, please. Menu. 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 She's crying because of George, I guess. Motherfucking menu. Oh, okay. I wanted to see what next is. It's still Angie? Oh. Beatrice. The Golden Witch and the Endless Witch. Beatrice Peace, who speaks on behalf of the Illusion of the Witch. The Illusion of the Witch? She claims that all of the crimes in Rokkanjima were caused by the Illusion of the Witch. In the 5th game, she clashes with Bandcastle, who denies this illusion. Because she herself is nothing more than a piece, and the higher plane version of her has stepped down as Game Master, she isn't in a position where she can know the truth of the 5th game. This puts her in a different position than the one she held in the games before now. Huh. Vigilia, now retired Endless Witch and Beatrice's teacher. That is the same text. That is also the same text, I think. Yeah. That also is the same text. We have these again. The Witch of Miracles, also known as the witch who knows that miracles don't occur. Huh? In the 5th game, she participates as a player in opposition to Beato. However, from the very beginning, her aim has been to deny the illusion of the witch. Her only goal is to crush Beato, and her world is a way to stave off boredom. Though she does deny the illusion of the witch, she is no ally of Valor's. Lambda Delta, in the place of Beato, who stepped down from the position of Game Master in the 4th game, Lambda Delta serves as the new Game Master in the 5th game. Therefore, it is expected that while the 5th game may be quite similar to the previous ones, there will be differences. She hates boredom as much as Bandcastle, and depending on the situation, she may become either an enemy or an ally to Beato or Burn. The man designated to be Beato's opponent in the first 4 games. In the 5th game, he is displeased that Lambda Delta has taken over as Game Master, so he does not participate as a player. Okay. Right now, no humans exist on this island except for those in this parlor. And with one exception, it has been shown that none of them have committed murder. And the culprit is among these people. Whoa. That means it's conclusive, isn't it? Unless the culprit is a witch who committed murder with magic, that is. It was you? You killed George, killed my husband? Why? What? Why? I didn't kill anyone. I didn't. Man, look at his face. In a panic and with a voice that was far from calm, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, ought not to be denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up, brushed back her long hair, pointed at Onatsuki and said it one more time. What the fuck? You're the culprit. Ushidumi Onatsuhi-san. The fuck? I guess that was Bandcastle now? But, huh? I think you accidentally started another question, sorry. Oh, I think I bought the wrong game. Hello?
It's Natsuhi. Please open up.
As she knocked loudly and repeatedly, Natsuhi yelled. Shortly after, there was a heavy clunking sound, and the sound of the door to Kinzo's study unlocking could be heard. As the door opened, a heavily sweet venomous odor flowed out. Natsuhi was always ashamed of how she automatically grimaced at that, even though she thought it rude to the family head. Klaus was waiting for her inside the study. Natsuhi flew into his arms.
His father, is he?
Calm yourself. Dr. Nanjo's examining him now.
With an uncertain gait, Natsuhi walked towards the center of the study, supported by Klaus. When is this now? Okay. This is not where we just were. I was wondering if we were still at the end of this supposed episode 5, but nobody's dead. There, a dignified bed, fitting for the Yoshidomiya family head, could be seen, along with Nanjo, Genji, and Kumazawa.
Dr. Nanjo, his father.
After sighing deeply, Nanjo left the side of the bed. On the bed, Kinzo could be seen lying down, asleep.
He died peacefully. I don't think Kinzo-san had any regrets.
Father. Sobbing, Natsuhi slumped over the chest of that man who had fallen into a sleep from which he would never awaken.
Madam, please stay strong. Father, this is just too sudden.
Natsuhi couldn't stop crying over the death of the man whom she had loved like a second father. Alright, it's not her real father. Kumasawa rubbed Natsuhi's back, consoling her. Klaus slumped into his late father's favorite chair. By sitting there, he might have been immersed in memories of his departed father, or perhaps he thought that by sitting there, he might be able to understand just a bit of the madness of Kinzo's later years, which he had never been able to comprehend before. And Nanjo, just as he had when Kinzo once sat in the chair contemplating a chess move, turned his back and looked down over the outside world through a crack in the curtains.
If only he'd been sick in bed for a year or so first. I do wish he could have died after a grace period during which the proper arrangements could have been made.
It's the other way around. We should be glad that he was in high spirits until the very end.
At least that's true as far as public appearances are concerned.
Nanjo understood that as well. Yoshidomiya Kinzo, who had risen like a comet and glittered like a supernova in the post-war business world, had died. His funeral would probably be of a fantastic scale, and it would also be the ceremony marking Klaus's inheritance of the headship. He would have to arrange everything as the host of the event, carry out funeral diplomacy perfectly, and make it clear to all that the Yoshidomiya family still had enormous influence in the political and financial spheres. As Nanjo watched Klaus, he was vividly reminded of the time when Kinzo had been suddenly selected as the Yoshidomiya family head, when Kinzo had been lost and confused. In this way, he was able to understand Klaus's distress and sympathize with it. Natsuhi's sobs eventually subsided. Watching this and leaving Kumasawa to care for Natsuhi as a fellow woman, Genji returned to where Klaus was, and as though asking what should be done, Genji lowered his head slightly.
Genji-san and I will deal with formalities. Klaus-san, perhaps you should contact their relatives first.
Klaus, with his hands still over his eyes, didn't respond. Perhaps even though he had known this day would come, Klaus really couldn't hide his shock at how suddenly he had reached them.
Leave this to Dr. Nanjo and me. Klaus-sama, I suggested you first speak with Madam.
Maybe she heard that, or maybe it was a coincidence. As though responding to Genji's words, Natsuhi came over. Her eyes were red from crying so much, but she apparently understood the heavy responsibility that had been imposed on them even better than Klaus did.
Starting now, you are the head of the glorious Yoshidomiya family. Let us show everyone, inside and out, that you have splendidly succeeded your father. As your wife, I, Natsuhi, am prepared to serve you until the day our coffins are laid down alongside each other.
Trying to encourage her husband, who was overcome with shock, Natsuhi lent him some reassuring words. When Klaus finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face, he looked up at the ceiling with a blank expression and let out a deep, deep sigh.
Please stay strong. There are a great many people who will plan to devour everything Father has left behind. We must fight to protect Father's honor and wealth. That is the first responsibility of the Yoshidomiya head.
I understand. I do understand.
Dr. Nanjo, Kenji, please take care of the legal and funeral arrangements. Especially you, Kenji. I ask that you take particular care and see to it that the funeral will be a fitting one for Father.
Certainly.
And Dr. Nanjo, Father didn't pass away in a hospital, so...
Indeed, an autopsy might be required depending on circumstances.
Can't you do something about that? Even though he has passed away, Father's body is precious. Any damage done to it would not be acceptable.
I understand how you feel, however, it is also important to deal with these matters probably. And I don't really know how to say this, but several of the relatives might make things difficult, yes.
Who knew how those vultures after the inheritance might try to find fault with them? They might claim to have found some reason to suspect the cause of death, using that as a point for contention to start some trouble. Right now it was important not only to pay Kinzo's remains the respect they were due, but also to solidify the position of the new family head, Klaus.
Understood. Please keep it to an absolute minimum. Make sure that Father's dignity is not damaged, even by mistake.
That will be fine. Do not worry. In any event, leave Kinzo-san to us and stay by Klaus-san's side. Things will start to get quite difficult from here on out.
I understand. And you too, dear. Please stay strong.
Klaus was still staring blankly at the ceiling with a befuddled expression on his face. She understood the shock and heavy responsibility he bore. Natsuhi understood her husband's feelings as much as anyone.
I will contact the relatives. Please rest for the time being.
Klaus didn't respond. Natsuhi, thinking him to be just a bit unreliable at the moment, decided she must offer her support. Seeing her husband like this actually spurred Natsuhi to action, and a resolute expression rose to her face.
Things will get busy from now on. Let's start by doing whatever we can right now. I'm sure my husband wants to have some time alone with Father. We should step out for a moment.
Good point. After all, this will probably be the last time he gets that chance.
Being in charge of a funeral is tiring work. There's no time to shed tears. If Klaus were ever to be given time to cry for his dead father, the time would have to be now. Everyone agreed with Kumasawa's words. Even so, Klaus continued to blankly gaze up at the ceiling and didn't respond in any way. Natsuhi urged the servants to go.
I'll go talk to Jessica too. That child is now the successor to the headship. I'll make sure to tell her to be fully prepared.
Wait.
As they each started to make their way out of the study, Klaus finally spoke. They stopped walking.
Yes.
Wait.
Yes?
Hadn't she already stopped walking, just like her husband had asked? But despite that, he told her once again to wait. From those slightly weak words, Natsuhi understood that he'd probably stopped her because he wanted her to be by his side.
The rest of you downstairs. I will stay with my husband. Please call us on the phone if anything happens.
Certainly.
I thought I told you to wait.
When Klaus suddenly raised his voice, everyone jumped and turned around. Unable to comprehend what she had done to spark her husband's wrath, Natsuhi ran up to him.
What's wrong, dear? Have I said something rude? If so, please forgive me.
No. That's not it. Wait a second. Give me some time.
Yes, I understand. It's important to sort things out inside your heart. We were just going to leave this place in silence to give you some time, okay?
And I'm telling you to wait before doing that. Listen up. No one move. Not even an inch. If you're tired, then feel free to sit in whatever chair or sofa you want. So just stay quiet and don't talk. Don't do anything.
Those unreasonable words felt like a glimpse of how Kinzo used to be. Natsuhi couldn't hide her slight surprise at this behavior, which almost made it seem as though Kinzo had possessed her husband. Natsuhi told the servants to wait for the time being. She ordered them to sit on a sofa a short distance off, approached her husband and spoke to him in a small voice.
If you order it, I will wait however long you ask. I won't move, so please try and calm yourself.
No, that's not it. That's not it.
Was it really blood, or was he actually being possessed? Klaus's disorderly style of speech strongly resembled Kinzo's. As she watched this, Natsuhi became certain that Klaus was Kinzo's son after all, and that he was the true successor, more suitable than any other person.
Natsuhi, come here.
Klaus stood up and headed towards the window, trying to lengthen the distance between himself and the servants waiting on the sofa by even a small amount. Natsuhi realized that he must have something secret to discuss.
Yes, dear? What is it?
Father dying is bad.
But he has already passed away. We cannot turn back time.
Of course. What else?
That's not it. It's bad that it happened now.
What do you mean?
I've been putting Father's fortune up as collateral. I won't be able to hide it when the division of the inheritance comes into question.
What? Collateral, you say? How much?
You remember how I helped out Kondo-kun back in Melody Land?
Didn't I tell you to break ties with that person? I thought you said you'd refused him. Why?
There is such a thing as a man's honor. I couldn't refuse.
Klaus claimed to hold honor as a virtue. However, Natsuhi knew that he most often used this as an excuse for when he reluctantly went along with a deal that he just couldn't refuse.
That wouldn't be a problem if we had plenty of money on hand, but didn't you borrow quite a lot of money for the plan to turn this island into a resort?
Yeah, I did. And there were people here, and there were here and there who lent me a hand along the way. If I'm going to repay them, I can't just sit around on my hands. You need money to repay people. You need money to make money. You can't even get started without money. And even the plan for this island would be proceeding smoothly if only there hadn't been problems with the planning company. I made contact with the government official in the city. I even got the governor's words that this would become the newest travel destination in the Tokyo metropolis. The groundwork I laid was completely perfect. Random chance and bad timing were against me. It was just a bit of bad luck, like a traffic accident.
That was no accident. It was fraud. You were tricked. They were never drawing up plans for turning this island into a resort in the first place.
That's not true. Hijikata-kun's vision was simply overflowing with foresight, the way his eyes always focused on the whole world and the future. Taught me that things I always believed to be mere dreams were only the tip of the iceberg of what is possible. Expand your dreams to the whole world, to the future. You heard him say that too, right?
Yes, I heard, and I think I remember telling you what I thought after we returned home. I said that he was suspicious, that he only spoke of dreams and didn't have his feet planted on the ground, and that you must not have any further relations with him.
Hijikata-kun is a wonderful, pleasant young man. One could learn a lot from the way he lives. I can respect him despite his youth. I won't have you insulting him.
That's what you said about the whole moon tourism thing. You kept saying it was visionary, that it looked to the future, that it had high aspirations, and what was the end result? Eventually, you yourself admitted that it was utter nonsense, right? I was sure something was wrong ever since that strange man showed up, claiming to be a high-ranking NASA official.
That foreigner was nothing more than an international swindler. Both Mr. Sonizaki and I were victims in that case. Right now, his vision isn't mistaken. In the future, there will surely come a time when the richest people in the world develop a liking for space travel. And the very first enterprise in that area will probably be monopolized by a single private company. That viewpoint is not mistaken. There was simply a group of international swindlers who were trying to take advantage of that fact and deceive investors across the world.
And I'm trying to tell you that this Sonizaki man was one of them too. Just how gullible are you? Why do you always just accept these suspicious offers without any doubts?
Yeah, Klaus does not seem to be the best when it comes to, business decisions.
Take that back. Mr. Sonizaki is a man with a brilliant future ahead of him. There's nothing suspicious about him, because the dreams he speaks of anticipate the future. They sound crazy to people who can't see into the future. A woman like you can't see into the future.
Yes, a woman like me cannot see into the future, but I can see the present. Right now in front of me, I can see a pitiful husband who's been taken in by sly, double-crossing swindlers who still trust them implicitly, even after he's being tricked.
Shut your mouth! You don't understand anything about money or business or economics. Don't try to butt in on your husband's job. A wife should be satisfied with doing housework. Keep your mouth shut.
Weren't they trying to be quiet or something? Without another word, Natsuhi fell silent, just as Klaus had hoped she would. She was already far beyond anger and sadness, and the emotion that lay on the other side of those was an almost indifferent pity. Klaus, who had been in awe of Kinzo since he was very young, had started to subconsciously admire the way his father lived. Without realizing it, he had come to believe that he could only be recognized as a man in his own right if he surpassed his father. However, Kinzo had been a mad genius, the likes of which had never before been seen in the Yoshidomiya family's long history. That talent was a gift from heaven, and it definitely wasn't genetic, much less something that could be learned. To give the two of them a chance to talk alone, Natsuhi told the servants not to tell anyone about Kinzo's death, and they left the room for the time being. Then she invited Klaus to her bedroom and made him tell her everything about their current financial situation. These were things that Natsuhi hadn't been told about, under the assumption that a woman had no business knowing. Natsuhi had herself made a point of avoiding this area in the past, thinking that it wasn't a wife's place to intrude on such matters. However, this might also have meant that she had abandoned her duty as a wife to protect her family. The depth of this sin had been made quite clear to Natsuhi. Klaus was probably tired of trying to defend himself. Perhaps because he had gotten a headache, he hid his face and sank into silence. Natsuhi noticed that the water in the electric kettle was boiling and stood up to refill her cup of black tea. When she touched the cup of black tea, she noticed for the first time. The sound of the cup and saucer clinking together told her that her fingers were shaking. Klaus had built up a large debt to obtain funds for his various projects and to cover the losses when they failed. Of course, he had put the mansion and property up as collateral. However, doing such a thing above board would result in the mortgage being registered. In other words, there would be a record that Klaus had put Kinzel's wealth up as collateral to obtain a loan without anyone's permission. Kinzel, Eva, and the others must not learn of such a thing. Therefore, Klaus had been putting those assets up as collateral using the worst possible method.
I signed over the deeds and power of attorney.
And what does that mean?
What Klaus was saying probably meant that he had, in essence, signed away the rights to his assets. If these assets had been used as collateral for a loan, then Klaus would still have some leeway under the law. He would have to deal with a bank, which would have absolutely no compassion, but they would be able to work something out within the rules set by society. However, signing away the deed and power of attorney was a whole different story. Is he an idiot? In other words, even the mansion they were living in. If the person holding the deed were to decide to ignore his agreement with Klaus and sell the mansion to a third party right this moment, they would have no recourse whatsoever. Far from using collateral for a loan, this was basically the same as selling their house to borrow money.
In other words, the moneylenders have the power to make or break the Ushidomiya family as they please. If they were to suddenly sell our house on some slight whim, we'd have to pack our bags and leave right now, wouldn't we?
That is technically true. However, everyone I have had dealings with is very reputable. This isn't consumer financing. It's a transaction based on trust between economically literate men.
Yeah, you haven't apparently proven to have a good eye for these so far.
I trust them, and they in turn trust that by lending me money I will achieve great success in business and give them massive returns on their investment. I signed over the power of attorney as a sign of good faith and so that they wouldn't have to doubt in the certain success of my business. What happens if I hesitate now? Wouldn't that mean even I have no confidence in my own business?
If you were such a successful businessman, we wouldn't be in debt now, would we? Not so you only barely stopped us from saying that.
Father is dead. What happens next?
Oh, yes, that's her.
Father's dead. What happens next? Will your debt be exposed to the light of day, and will your siblings hold you responsible?
That won't be all. It will probably lead to criminal charges.
Criminal charges? Why is that?
It's better if you don't know. Anyway, this must not be learned of by anyone.
Klaus looked at the floor shamefully, shaking his head over and over. If it would come to criminal charges, then he must have broken some laws. He'd probably been so intent on raising a large sum of money that nothing had mattered to him but survival. Klaus had seriously believed that he would succeed with several businesses, and that he would definitely gain huge profits, so he had figured that even if he stepped over a few legal lines, he would be able to pay everything back before too long and pretend that the whole thing had never happened. This may gave, I guess it should have been have. This may have been the factor that lessened his resistance towards breaking a couple laws. And now Kinzel's death, the worst possible thing, had occurred, and they wouldn't be able to keep it all hidden for long.
What will happen to us?
There's no need to worry. You may not believe it, but conditions are most certainly on the rise now. The value of the city real estate I invested in will rise rapidly. Right now I am working on a project to integrate those and construct a massive business tower. This will be the most reliable of all my investments so far and will prove to be the most successful.
Yeah, because all your other projects sounded so successful.
However, it will take a little more time for that to bear fruit. It's absolutely certain, but that doesn't mean it will happen now.
Will the success of the venture be enough to pay back our debts?
Of course it will. I'll be able to wipe out all the debt I've accumulated so far, so have faith in me. I only need a little more time.
But Father is already dead. We don't have that kind of time anymore, do we?
I know that. That's why I have to obtain money from somewhere and pay off those debts right now. Anyway, I need money. Money, a lot of it right now. Ah!
As Klaus roared and clutched at his head, he writhed about as if in pain. As she watched, several emotions swirled about in Natsuhi's chest. Her emotions conflicted as she felt pity for her husband, while also feeling that he was a fool. And she felt a mixture of resentment and regret towards her own responsibility in letting her husband run wild for so long. Even if this day hadn't come, it should have been clear that they were in a very critical situation, and yet he had carelessly waited for this moment to come, and was now writhing about. Her husband was so foolish and so pitiful, it would be easy to let herself get fed up with this. However, she was his wife. For a wife, ridiculing her husband as a fool would run in conflict with her responsibilities. If he was a fool, then she would have to support him enough to compensate. However, she didn't have a clue what she should do. Since there had been such a massive amount of money within arm's reach, it was only natural that Klaus had tried to dip his hands into it. It would also be easy to tell him to be a man and give up on all of it, but that would also run in conflict with her responsibilities. She was Shidomiya Natsui, the woman who had become Klaus's wife and sworn to support him, the new head of the Shidomiya family for her whole life. She had to somehow help her husband in his efforts to raise money. She understood it logically, but she couldn't suppress the indescribable dejection that seemed to rise up from the dark depths of her heart.
That's right, for father's hidden gold. 10 tons of gold is worth 20 billion yen. If I had that. That's right, if I had that, all our problems will be solved. Natsui, that's it, the witch's aRdW. Let's solve that. Let's solve it together. If we can just find the gold, everything will work itself out. That's right, it must be hidden somewhere on this island. If we had that.
That hurts, dear. Please stop it. Klaus, acting as excited as if he thought up a perfect brilliant plan, grasped Natsuhi's upper arms tightly. Natsuhi couldn't help but be dumbfounded. She wasn't just taken aback because he'd heard him bring up something as fake-sounding as the hidden gold. This was Klaus who usually mocked the story of the hidden gold, saying that it didn't exist and that it was all an illusion his father had created to borrow a lot of money. That was why Natsuhi was doubly taken aback.
Yes. Let's have Jessica help us too. Maybe some things can only be solved with a child's sensitivity. This is a family crisis. All of us have to stick together. Yes, it's a fanciful riddle that father created. We should be able to solve it, and there's no reason we wouldn't be able to solve it. It's the only way. Oh, Natsui, this is wonderful. We still have an option left right here next to us. The gold is on this island. If we had it, every one of our problems would be solved. Wow. Natsui, call Jessica here right away. Let's overcome this family crisis together. Yes, right now. The gold is on this island. It's right beside us.
Unable to withstand the pain in the arm he was twisting in his excitement, Natsuhi knocked Klaus aside. Klaus tripped over the edge of the bed and flopped over into the floor.
Please get a hold of yourself, and please calm down. Do you really think that this Shidomiya family crisis could be solved by something as dreamlike as that?
Natsui.
Please cool your head and think of a realistic plan together, Money. I'm going to cool my head. Go cool my head as well.
Wait, Natsui.
Maybe he had come to his senses the instant he fell over. Klaus tried to tell Natsuhi to stop, but she just kept walking. After closing the door forcefully, Natsuhi dashed away. Natsuhi ran through the corridor. Oh! Even though she didn't want anyone to see her like this, she ran headlong into Genji.
My deepest apologies. Madam, have you been injured? I'm fine. Leave me alone. Certainly. Oh, Genji, how are things going in Father's study?
It is just as you left it, although Dr. Nundra's in the parlor.
Is that so? Do you have the key to the study?
Yes, right here.
Give it to me. Let me have some time alone with Father. If my husband asks where I am, tell him you don't know.
Certainly.
After grabbing the key to the study that Genji was holding out to her, Natsuhi rushed up the stairs. She then flew into the study, finally let out a wail and cried.
Father, please forgive our foolishness. My husband and I are incapable of inheriting all that you created. Please, please forgive us for our foolishness and our crimes, and if you can forgive us, please guide the way for us fools.
Clinging to Kinzo as he slept in the bed, Natsuhi cried even harder. She kept imagining Kinzo sitting up suddenly and patting her head. Her father isn't the type of person to pamper. More likely he'd yell at me to stop being so noisy. However, neither of these imaginations came true, because it was an undeniable fact that Kinzo had entered an eternal sleep. But even so, Natsuhi begged the sleeping Kinzo to forgive and help them. It was still only a few hours after his passing. Perhaps his soul was still here, listening to her. Believing this, Natsuhi begged for Kinzo's forgiveness and help even more earnestly.
Too noisy. Haven't I always said that I hold silence as a virtue?
Huh? That voice made Natsuhi jump up in surprise. What the hell? When she faced the direction that the voice had come from, she saw Kinzo sitting at the study desk, folding up his reading glasses.
Did you get in a fight with Klaus again? Neglecting his wife like that Klaus only inherited my bad traits.
But father...
What a wretched-looking face. Wash it. Aren't you the wife of the successor of the Yoshidomiya family? You mustn't let the servants see you wear such a shameful expression.
Yes, father. My apologies.
Natsuhi understood. This was just an illusion, one that Natsuhi had created out of her desire to speak with the memory of Kinzo as he once was. No, that wasn't it. She believed that just for now, Kinzo's soul had shown itself to her. She was sure that doubting this would cause it to vanish in an instant.
It seems that at the instant the family headship was passed on, the family has reached a crisis.
Yes, father. I wasn't able to support my husband. I am truly very sorry.
The Yoshidomiya family is so very cursed. It was in a terrible state when I succeeded the headship too. That makes your suffering seem almost cute in comparison.
Kinzo's succession to the family headship had come suddenly. At the time, he had been nothing more than a single young man from a brand family, far separated from the Yoshidomiya main family. The main family might have had honor and tradition, but Kinzo had had nothing to do with that. Then the principal members of the main family were wiped out in the Great Kanto earthquake, along with their businesses. On top of that, there had been a complicated antagonism between the members of the family at the time, and the elders had all tried to impose their will on the others in that sinking ship. Because of this, they weren't even able to elect a leader to revive the Yoshidomiya family. They then found a common ground and selected Kinzo, a youth with absolutely no ties to any of the opposing elders, to be the head. So the elders had really entrusted Kinzo with the rebuilding of the Yoshidomiya family. Kinzo had been nothing more than their puppet, with his arms and legs pulled in opposite directions.
Yes, I know a lot about your days of suffering, father.
And then the war started. At the time I was already tired of life. I hoped I would die on the battlefield, but I wasn't sent to the front lines. However, the state of the war grew worse with every day, and the time for the decisive battle on the Japanese mainland seemed to grow ever closer. As terrible as it may sound, I prayed for the day to come quickly.
After listening to the approaching footsteps of that Reaper day in and day out, it is said that Kinzo started cutting his ties with this world one by one, and then on that day when he had severed all his regrets, when he reached the state of enlightenment, it is said that he had a mystical experience. It is said that he met her, the Golden Witch Beatrice.
I made a contract with the witch and was given the power of gold and madness. On that day, the old me died and the new me possessing the insane power of magic was born.
I know, and after the war, you used your ingenious cunning to revive the Yoshidomiya family.
The now deceased elders who knew Kinzo at the time had whispered to each other that Kinzo must have bumped his head on the battlefield and returned with a different personality. That was how much Kinzo had stood out after the war. Whether the story about Kinzo meeting a witch was true or not, there could be no doubt that the extraordinary experience of war had prepared him for death and let him reach a state of enlightenment. If he wanted to describe the mystical experience following all that as a meeting with a witch, that claim certainly shouldn't be dismissed out of hand.
That's right. You returned from the war, conquered the witch Beatrice, and became the head of the Yoshidomiya family in the truest sense.
Correct. Before I met Beatrice, I was nothing more than a puppet, only the head in name. I only became the head after conquering the Golden Witch.
Father, will this Golden Witch aid my husband Klaus, now that he's the new head?
Oh, she will, assuming that he has truly succeeded the headship.
What do you mean by truly succeeded?
I mean, it depends on whether he bears the responsibility and pride of the Yoshidomiya family head in the truest sense. Natsuhi, you should understand this. The headship is not inherited by blood. It is inherited through spirit and conviction. Even though Klaus is my eldest son, he cannot be called the true head if he does not possess these things. And if that spirit were to dwell in a human, even someone other than Klaus, they would make a splendid new head. Beatrice will lend her power to that true head. Isn't that right, Beatrice?
What the... Also, why not the patch? It's easiest if you go to my YouTube channel and check the comments on the first episode of my playlist of Umineko, where I was asked the same question and answered there. Because I don't really want to pause reading this right now for that. When Kinzo called the witch's name, gold butterflies seethed out of every corner of the room. This fantastical scene had an otherworldly beauty to it. It was like standing in the midst of a blizzard of golden flower petals being blown about a rose garden of gold. As Natsuhi stared at the scene in shock, the gold butterflies gathered and formed a human shape. What the hell? What the hell? What the hell? Then the Witch of the Porter appeared. Indeed, I am the Yoshidomiya family alchemist, the Golden Witch Beatrice. I am free to run rampant. I listen to no one's orders.
And there's only one person in the world who can control her. Me. That is why I am qualified to be the Ushiomiya family head.
So it's that pride of yours that qualifies you?
Pride requires self-confidence and bravery, and it is the embodiment of the insatiable desire to gain power to match those traits. That is why I controlled you.
Watching men who speak of pride turn those desires into reality can be quite pleasant. The quiet man of action is nothing more than an excuse used by the extremely lucky. A true monarch also speaks of what he doesn't have, and he makes that pride a reality without fail. If one is to control me, they must possess such a monarch's pride. Do you understand, Natsuhi? A true monarch fears no hardship. They declare that they will overcome anything without fail, even if they haven't yet figured out how. This gives hope to the weak. They gather, revere the monarch, and swear to assist him. This is where power is gained, and his word is carried out. Engrave that into your heart.
Yes, father.
Natsuhi understood. Through this mystical experience, Kenzo was telling her how to prepare herself to overcome hardship, even after his own death. Feeling a warm sensation rise up in her chest, she let the valuable words Kenzo had given her echo through her mind over and over. A true monarch, in other words, the true head of the Yoshidomiya family, must not fear hardship. Such a person must believe they can overcome any hardship. If they can't even believe it about themselves, then they'll have no chance of overcoming their challenges. She suddenly felt very ashamed of the way she'd entered this room, sobbing and asking Kenzo what to do.
I was foolish.
Of course there's no time
for crying when an Ushidomiya family crisis is upon us, and now that we have inherited the Ushidomiya family from you, father, we must protect its honor no matter what. Huh, even though you can't even draw a blueprint on how to repay Klaus's debts?
Beatrice laughed unpleasantly. No, that wasn't it. She was testing Natsuhi to see whether she possessed the mental readiness to be a true monarch. Natsuhi wasn't confused anymore. She answered clearly, gazing into Beatrice's eyes.
Yes, at this moment I have not yet discovered the method we should pursue. However, my husband is the new head of the Ushidomiya family, and I am a supporting wife. So I will proclaim it in my husband's place.
Let us hear it.
Ushidomiya Klaus and Natsuhi will definitely overcome these trials and protect the honor of the Ushidomiya family, which will result in all of us being murdered in 1986.
Sorry. You have nothing to worry about, father.
Do you know the scope of Klaus's debt, as well as the horrible state things are in?
Yes. If the worst happens and we are ordered to leave this mansion tomorrow, we won't be able to refuse. During the distribution of the inheritance, the relatives might even file a criminal complaint. However, there is no need to worry. We will repay all of the debts before then and restore our honor.
As he stood at attention with a resolute attitude, Natsuhi proclaimed this clearly with Ushidomiya, Kenzo, and Beatrice as witnesses. For a while, they remained silent as though wearing Natsuhi's resolve. Then Kenzo chuckled and turned away.
How vexing. Why couldn't this person have been my son?
The very fact that a woman with such a disposition married your son is another sign of your great luck.
Beatrice, this is my final order.
Now that you are no longer the head, I am not obligated to obey your orders.
Huh. In that case, obey the orders of the new Ushidomiya family head.
You are no longer the head, and Klaus is not yet the head. Whom are you suggesting that I serve?
I will leave that to you. It is up to you to decide who is qualified to succeed the Ushidomiya family head, and who is fitted to bear the mark of their one-legged eagle. You will ensure that it is so.
I refuse. I won't listen to the orders of the man who isn't the head.
No, this is different. This is a will, the last order that the head left behind for you.
Then it seems I will have to obey.
After all, I can be quite accommodating.
Liar.
Huh?
You're only doing this because it caught your interest, aren't you?
I can't hide anything from you, can I?
Natsuhi,
Yes, father.
go and overcome your hardship.
Yes.
That might have seemed like a mere response to Natsuhi, but to Kenzo and Beatrice it seemed to be something of much greater significance. Beatrice nodded deeply, and with a motion as elegant as her dress, she bowed deeply before Natsuhi.
The Ushidomiya family alchemist, the goal in which Beatrice is present. I shall give you my aid to assist the Ushidomiya family in overcoming another crisis. Thank you. I will need your power. We will most certainly overcome these trials. I will not hold back on my support for your cause, but there's something I must warn you about beforehand. I understand that your troubles now could be solved if I were to grant you a vast quantity of gold, like I did when I saved Kenzo from his crisis. However, that is something I cannot do. Is that so?
Sorry, Natsuhi. Beatrice's gold came from a contract limited to my generation. It was agreed that it could only be passed on to another if that person sold the witch's epitaph.
The gold is sealed away by the epitaph. As long as that is not solved, you cannot be given the golden magic. I understand. Then I shall search for another method by which we can save ourselves from this crisis. My husband said his plan would take time, but he also said that it would surely be sufficient to repay our debts. If we can buy enough time for that to happen, we will be able to overcome this trial.
Good, Natsui. Continue.
But Kinzo is already dead. The doctor and servants are preparing his funeral. You were about to contact the family members. By your own hand, you will bring an end to this ploy for time. How charming is the guillotine where you lower the blade yourself.
Startled, Natsuhi looked up at the ceiling. There wasn't actually anything there. But even so, Natsuhi had found something.
So the magical power has descended.
Natsuhi, have you made up your mind? What magic of miracles do you desire from me?
I guess this is a good point for stopping because it's already past 11. So I will stop the recording now.